Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag video for June 2024. The page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean the Book Maniac. It's based off of a French literary prize wherein, for the long list of said prize, the judges read solely page 112 of the books in contention. I think they were all novels. Page 112 was supposed to, in most novel-length books, be, somewhere near the middle, beyond all the ultra-polished for editors pages where you get the raw, real writing. And without, having read the 111 pages preceding, you can only judge based on the quality of the writing because you have no other context for the story. So I've been using this tag monthly since the beginning of COVID to slowly whittle my physical unread shelves down and, of course, build them back up again. I have this handy-dandy Books and Cats mug, and inside there's pieces of paper with titles on them of books I've acquired in 2023 or earlier. So what I do in this video is I randomly pick out 3 pieces of paper, then I discuss page 112 of each of the 3 books with you, and then decide which of those books I will add to my month's TBR. So for June, I'm actually not taking part in the BookTube prize for this round, but I was so behind last month trying to finish up the BookTube prize quarterfinals that I didn't get to everything I wanted to read for myself in May. So my TBR for June is longer than usual, so I am finding myself hoping I can find a shorter book in here. I also talked last month in my page 112 tag video about maybe wanting to pick We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter, which is on my shelves, and also there's a Netflix adaptation of that out currently, but I guess I feel a little more about whether or not I pick that this month, but we shall see. We shall see what will happen. So without further ado, let me get right into it, starting with book number 1. So I just try to randomly feel around here for a bit and then ultimately choose a piece of paper that isn't sticking to any other one. Hopefully like this one. Okay. The Vixen by Francine Prose. So this is a recent acquisition. I got it about a year ago, I think in June 2023, when I went to my used library bookstore, which I tend to try to do at least once a year. And I believe this is Jewish historical fiction taking place in the 1950s, if I remember correctly. Okay, so next I'm going for book number 2. I do try to like to get a little bit of variety in here, in as much as I can get variety in the books on my shelves. We shall see. So here we go. Let's see what we got here. Oh, The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. I've been thinking about this book a bit. This is a little bit older by maybe a year. I've had it a year longer in my care, that's not the right word, but anyway, this is Jewish romance. I think I've even had it on my other TBR game board, and I've been excited to try my hand at Jewish romance and see what I think of it. And this particular author, I think, has made a little bit of a name for herself in writing contemporary Jewish romances, so I'm feeling a little biased right now. We'll have to see how it goes when I read the page. And finally, going for book number 3, I've picked 2 Jewish books so far. I've picked 2 books I've never played with before, so, it would be nice to maybe get a book I have played with and can not, have so much post-production, or, a non-Jewish book even. Just trying to feel around here and make a decision. Is this one? This is one. Okay. Florence Adler Swims Forever by Rachel Beanland. Not so different from the other two after all. In fact, it's a lot like my choice number one in that it's Jewish historical fiction that I got, I believe, from my used library bookstore back in June of 2023. But I have been looking forward to this one as well. You know, had it on my radar since Jewish Book Council reviewed it, and then it also made a little bit of a splash in the non-Jewish world the year it was published as well, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this one. Okay, you've seen me grab all three of these books. I'm actually going to go and read the pages to myself first and gather my thoughts and then return to you, so stay tuned. Okay, I'm back and ready to share, starting with book number one, The Vixen by Francine Prose. The Fox Gothic stone mansion was overheated, and I began to sweat even as I pushed open the massive Fox medieval door. Rivulets ran down my armpits as I asked to see Anya Partridge. A nurse in a white uniform sat behind the reception desk. Another nurse in an equally crisp white uniform sighed, then rose and, looking back over her shoulder at me with resignation and pity, led me down the hall. I thought of Ethel's death house matron, that final kiss on the cheek, the prison guard telling the world how sad Ethel was, and how much she loved her sons. I expected locks and keys, gates, alarms, but there were none. I could have found Anya's room on my own, so strong was the smell of incense wafting out from beneath the door. The nurse knocked gently, then stepped back, less like someone with good manners than someone disarming a bomb. "She's expecting you," the nurse said. Anya Partridge opened the door, and we shook hands in a steamy cloud of perfume and French tobacco. She looked just like her photograph, as did the carved, canopied bed behind her, which she appeared to have just left. I was at once unsurprised and shocked that she so cleverly resembled her author portrait. I'd spent so long staring at it, I felt as if I knew her. And for a few deranged moments, I imagined that she knew what we had done in my dreams, as if she had been there with me. Beneath the florals and smoke was a syrupy candy scent that I thought might be opium. I was afraid to inhale, though I knew that was silly. "You must be Mr. Putnam." "Please call me Simon," I said. "Then you must call me Anya." "Come into my parlor," said the spider to the fly. My strangulated laugh was pure hysteria. I wished I could take it back. I felt helpless, unnerved. Anya had already taken control. Okay, so I thought this was overall pretty strong, present moment, lots of action, exposition and dialogue, all the good stuff. Interesting scene setting, really, with these nurses in what seems to be a hospital of some sort. The author was already presenting the idea of Anya being an intimidating figure, that even the nurses were like looking at him with pity or, stepping back from the door as though there'd be a bomb threat. Although I did find that final line of hysteria to be, a little over the top. That was my thought about it. The other things I noticed in this page were things that I knew from context, that I remembered reading the back of the book or whatever as I was reading through this page. For example, the Ethel who is mentioned is Ethel Rosenberg. The Rosenberg trial and execution features like in the backdrop of this book. So I knew that's who he was thinking about, which is also, I guess, a weird thing to think about in comparison to someone he's intimidated by, because, he was remembering Ethel as she was being killed, which seems like victimization, and I think Ethel Rosenberg in large part, well, at least today, I'm not sure about in the context of this story, but I think she's seen as very much a victim of what happened. And then the other thing I was kind of remembering as we're introduced to Anya is that I think this Simon Putnam might work in the literary field somewhere, might be, I guess, connected either to her publisher or her agent, so I'm assuming he's there on some sort of official business. And so, yeah, those were my takeaways about this page. I mean, overall, I found it intriguing. I'd want to know where this conversation is going, why Anya is in this hospital, her agent or publisher wants from her. But I mean, she really dominates the page, and maybe that is a bit uncomfortable because you can kind of tell just from this page and who is the first person narrator that it's technically Simon Putnam's story, but he's being repressed in his own page. So I thought overall this was pretty well done. Book number 2 is The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. After some time, an aide appeared to take Paul home, and Jacob finally found himself alone with Rachel. "You were good with him," Rachel said quietly. Jacob returned the compliment. "He was good with me." Rachel smiled. It was warm and genuine. Jacob couldn't help smiling along with her. He watched her eyes drift over to the exit. Outside the main sanctuary, Paul was being loaded up into an accessibility transport. "A lot of people don't see Paul," she said thoughtfully, "because of his disability and because sometimes he can be sort of quirky and obsessive in his interests. But you know what the Midrash says? God only works through broken vessels." Jacob swallowed. A lump of something hard and uncomfortable worked its way down from the center of his throat. Midrash? Is that some type of Jewish philosophy? "Kind of," she shrugged. "It's more like biblical commentary. But if you think about it, brokenness is all over the Bible. Moses has a speech impediment. God requests a half shekel and not a full shekel from all the Israelites. Even all the world was created from something unformed and void. God could have just as easily said, 'I create this universe from nothing.' But he didn't. So, there's probably a lesson in that." Jacob blinked. She was so smart. Rachel pushed him into conversations that were challenging, a rarity for a man more accustomed to screaming over music than having in-depth discussions with a woman at a table. "Anyway," Rachel said, staring down at her lap, "I don't want to bore you." "You're not boring me. I find it fascinating." He found her fascinating. "So what's the point of it?" "What?" "Brokenness." Okay, so I have some mixed feelings about this, which kind of makes me sad because I've been so looking forward to trying out this book. I like, I guess, the idea of the beginning. Maybe I'm a little biased by the last book I've read and, remembering someone visiting someone else in a hospital. And in this situation, it's not a hospital setting, but the person who's leaving has a sort of disability. So I don't know, it's a similar sort of thing, and it's supposed to be a kindness. And I thought Jacob's words were quite nice about it. Like, he taught me something too, whatever had happened in the past 111 pages. I also really, love that there's Jewish commentary in here, and I guess I feel like Rachel's commentary on brokenness is the start to something that could be an intriguing philosophical conversation, but I don't quite buy that Jacob is so taken by it. And I feel like some of the main weakness of that whole thing is that Metzler doesn't have him respond to her. So why are we supposed to believe that he's actually being drawn into a conversation or thinking about things? I mean, I guess technically, sure, you could be thinking about things and not want to voice them, but it feels more like she's imposing this, or he's, saying something without showing it, that, "Oh, I'm so impressed by you, but I'm not actually going to show why." And so the whole idea of, I feel like what Rachel was saying could be the start to an interesting conversation, but it didn't actually go anywhere. And so through this page, I don't have much to go on in terms of this relationship and why it's working. And I feel like that's a shame. I don't know. I'm going to put this book down for now. I know ultimately I will, pick it up again, and I hope that I will enjoy it. I always enjoy reading the back flap about what it's about. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that Jacob seems to be the main character of, we're in his head for this page, but maybe it goes back and forth between the two of them. Who knows? And I have still hopes for this book, but in terms of the page 112 tag, I think it just doesn't fit the bill. And finally, Book 3 is Florence Adler Swims Forever by Rachel Beanland. Stuart had noticed that, over time, much of his resentment toward the hotel itself had been redirected toward the people who frequented it. And, of course, toward his father, who maintained his grandfather's belief that Jews, and most definitely Negroes, had no business staying at a hotel as grand as the Covington. Florence had been the one to point out the Covington's discriminatory practices to Stuart, back when she was swimming for the Ambassador Club, and he remembered feeling embarrassed that he hadn't even noticed there were no Jewish names in the hotel's guest book. "That's why my parents don't like you," Florence had said, as simply as if she were explaining why she was late to swim practice. Stuart had initially felt stunned. So unfamiliar was he with the sensation of being disliked by anyone. But then he'd begun to pay attention. When he looked around the Covingtons' dining rooms, bars, and ballrooms, he saw the East Coast's most privileged elites, all eager to spend their holiday pretending they lived in a world that didn't actually exist. Cy let Stuart off on the second floor, and Stuart tipped his head toward his companions. He could feel his chest tighten and his breathing grow shallower as he arrived at the administrative suite. Since it wasn't yet 9 o'clock, the desk of his father's secretary sat empty. He grabbed a peppermint out of a glass jar she kept beside her typewriter, then rapped on the door that led to his father's office. "Who is it?" Stuart didn't feel the need to announce himself, given the fact that his father had summoned him. Instead, he just turned the doorknob and went inside. "You made it, I see," said his father, looking at his wristwatch. "I did. 23 hours later." Stuart refused to be riled. "I'm here," he said as he sat down, uninvited, in one of the 2 leather club chairs that faced his father's desk, an expensive Bauhaus contraption of mahogany and tubular steel that he'd paid to have shipped from Germany. All right, honestly, I feel like this is another strong page. I like how, we were kind of in the middle of a paragraph, but we could still quite easily understand almost immediately that Stuart is ruminating on a hotel that has, discriminatory practices. He's thinking of Florence, who I would assume from this is the main character, kind of opening his eyes to that reality. Maybe they're in a interfaith relationship, perhaps, because from that page and from what I know about this book, I would say that Florence is probably Jewish. It's also nice that we do get references to her, swimming, since, it's obviously an important part of the story given the title. I do think, some of his ruminations on who are these people, why don't I like them, maybe that's a little, on the nose, although I do kind of like how what he's thinking. I feel like it's an interesting thing to think about, why people, live in fantasy lands, where they discriminate against people to sort of create a fantasy world for themselves. But the page moves on from that, at least, to this relationship between Stuart and his father, which I find much more compelling. Anything, the conflict, is seething between the two of them, and the way that Stuart's father is being so disdainful of him, and it definitely makes me want to go on and see more of that relationship. And in that vein, I think I am going to continue along with Florence Adler Swims Forever. I mean, I think that the Vixen had similar strengths, and certainly the relationship between Simon and Anya also seemed pretty promising. And maybe I'm putting a little too much emphasis on that hysteria remark, why that didn't work for me. But I feel a little bit more drawn to this story. Maybe more than just the page 112 tag, since I seem to not always play completely by my own rules. I do feel like I have a little more vested interest in reading this story more quickly, and it is also the shorter book. So there's that. I'm expecting and hoping for good things. So that about covers it for me now, and you can find Goodreads links for all 3 of these books listed down below, as well as a playlist to all of the TBR games I play. Well, I play 2 of them, the page 112 tag monthly, and then another game quarterly. Another thing I like to do in these outros is shout out another TBR game or readathon that the BookTube community is taking part in, because that's my way of trying to feel like I'm part of the community, and that my, page 112 tag is my own way to try to be spontaneous and fun in my reading. And so for this month, it's Pride Month, and I don't know if you'd say this necessarily fits, but I think it kind of fits to look at the Golden Girls Readathon. In my mind, and at least going off the bias of some of my friends, I kind of equate the Golden Girls with gay culture, that, the gays like the Golden Girls. And in this readathon, there's even extra points given for reading queer books this month. And so anyway, the Golden Girls Readathon is actually a challenge that pit people against each other in teams. And you choose a team, I guess, based on the genre you most want to read, and the genres are associated with the four main characters of the Golden Girls in a clever way of deciding, you know, which genre most fits which Golden Girl. And it even has a special component that for every book of your genre that you read, you gain a point for your team, but every book of a genre for another team that you read, you deduct a point from them. So maybe it'll be a little complicated when it comes to tallying up the points at the end, but I guess that's what, you know, the organizers signed up for. Anyway, I'll leave a link to this year's announcement video down below. So we're moving faster into June than I would like, I think, but I still have to wrap up some May stuff before I go, and perhaps appropriately I was mentioning the Midrash in one of these page 112 tags, and expect me back on this channel again in the near future for my Maybe Midrash Readathon wrap-up, where I read some books that seriously dealt with Jewish religion, and also have a film to review as well, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I hope you're all doing very well with your reading. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.